What happens to childhood in a world where innocence has no place? What does it mean to be a child when the world around you is filled with monsters, both literal and metaphorical? On My Way to Meet Mom isn't just a story about survival. It's a deeply emotional journey of a child, Mori, who doesn't speak a word and yet expresses and says so much. A story about fear, resilience, and the lingering hope that maybe, just maybe, love can still exist in a world that has abandoned humanity. Hello all, I'm Atlas and this is IRAM. In this series, we take an overview approach to give people some insight into cool manhwas, mangas, and novels to read. Today we're diving into, honestly, it's probably the warmest my heart has felt in a long time, and I regularly reread this manhwa when new chapters come out. Today we're looking at On My Way to Meet Mom, a manhwa about a lonely human kid in an alien world. If you're a fan of good world building, heartwarming stories, suspense, and adventure, this is one you'll want to read. As always, if you guys have suggestions on what to read or cover next, let me know down below in the comments, or you can join my Discord and discuss and suggest stuff there. Imagine growing up in a world where everything is out to get you. Not just in the way that every child faces dangers like falling down or getting lost or being afraid of the dark, but in a world where the very environment is hostile. Poisonous insects, grotesque creatures, and an entire race of alien overlords that treat you as little more than an unwanted relic of a defeated species. This is Mori's world. A silent child navigating an orphanage filled with other forgotten human children, unaware of the dangers that await beyond the walls. You see, this story starts off with the discovery of Mori, the introduction to the orphanage, and a little bit of a backstory. This is Earth of the future, where aliens now rule the planet. Humanity in the past was visited by aliens and they fought and lost. The alien powers overwhelmingly outstripped what humanity was capable of. In one singular moment, aliens won the first and only battle so decisively, it cost humanity the war before it ever began. The choice to have Mori remain speechless is one of the most powerful storytelling decisions in this manhwa. Without dialogue, his emotions are purely conveyed through his body language and facial expressions, something this art style excels at. The hand-painted aesthetic brings out every minute detail, every flicker of hesitation, every spark of wonder, and every shadow of fear. It's a visual storytelling technique that places the weight of the world on Mori's shoulders without ever needing words. Mori's journey isn't just about survival, it's about the universal longing for love and safety, his singular goal, to find his mother. A concept so simple, yet so deeply human. Along the way, he faces hurdles that in another world might be mundane. Wild animals, hunger, cold, but here, these dangers are amplified by a world that is no longer made for him. This journey reminds us of stories like The Road or The Last of Us. A lone child accompanied by a reluctant guardian trying to carve out a place in the world that has already decided they shouldn't exist. And just like in those stories, the heart of On My Way to Meet Mom lies in the relationship between Mori and his protector, Ryder. At first, Ryder is what you would expect, a bounty hunter hardened by the world he lives in. To him, Mori isn't a child, he's an asset, a bargaining chip because of the strange royal insignia on his cape. But as the journey continues, something shifts. Ryder begins to see Mori not as a tool, but as a child, and perhaps, in some way, as his child. This kind of reluctant father figure is a story we've seen before. Wolverine and Laura in Logan, Leon and Matilda in Leon the Professional. But On My Way to Meet Mom does it differently. Without words, without grand declarations, Ryder's change is shown in the smallest of moments. A pause before he brushes Mori away, a subtle hesitation when Mori is in danger, a glance that lingers just a second longer than it should. Expression is everything to this story. The manhwa's hand-painted aesthetic allows for a depth of emotion that traditional digital art often struggles to capture. Every scene feels tactile and much more raw. as if the artist physically painted each moment with painstaking care. Mori's silence forces us to read his face, his movements, and his surroundings in ways that make us feel every emotion with him. In my personal opinion, stories like this one, and even animes like Grimgar, Fantasy, and Ash, are stories that resonate with you because they carry the weight of life behind them. Mori's journey so far in the released chapters carries weight and emotion you don't normally find in many forms of today's media. That's not to say media today can't compare, but more so that you can tell this carries the weight of the studio and the artists behind it. The story is reminiscent of works like A Tale of Princess Kaguya, where every brushstroke carries emotion, or Loving Vincent, where the art itself is as much a character as the people within it. This is what makes On My Way to Meet Mom so powerful. It's a story you don't just read, it's a story you feel. In the end, On My Way to Meet Mom is about something deeply human. It's about love, resilience, and the way even in the darkest of times, the smallest of hopes can keep us moving forward. Mori doesn't need words to tell his story. His journey says it all. And perhaps, in his silent search for a mother he may never find, he has already found something just as important, a reason to keep going. So how does On My Way to Meet Mom score when it comes to storytelling, world building, and system depth? When it comes to storytelling, I give it a 9 out of 10. On My Way to Meet Mom is a story that anyone can fall in love with. It's clear the artists and the writers of the studio put the heart into it and truly adore the world they've created. I'm excited to see how the world building evolves along with Mori's story. When it comes to world building, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. There, so far in the story, isn't much focus on the world building through external storylines. We see a lot of snippets here and there, but the story almost exclusively revolves tightly around Mori's journey. This doesn't mean that the story itself is bad, just more so that there isn't a lot of evolution so far to the world around the story. We get small glimpses and such throughout the story, but not a lot of it is explored beyond pushing the story forward. When it comes to system building, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Again, this rating doesn't mean that the story is bad, just that the evolution of the alien powers, the concept of human technology, and alien technology are not fully or very deeply explored so far in the story. This story wholly relies on emotional carrying capacity to float the story, and that's what makes it worth the read. But for those that love to know more about the world and the system and the politics of play, there isn't much to grasp onto beyond some core concepts. This makes the story that's being focused on carry more weight, as you can almost only relate to the directly introduced characters like Mori and Ryder. Overall, if you enjoy an emotional journey and adventure series, this manhwa is probably the best you can get that I have read so far. It's just an enjoyable story from the rather overused common tropes we see in today's media. The art style itself is beautifully done, and it's genuinely great manhwa to read through. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and if you want to support me and the channel, consider becoming a member. If you want to discuss this or more, give your thoughts, leave a comment down below. You can also join my Discord and come hang out there to keep up to date with all the comings and goings of everything that I have going on. With all that said, I'm Atlas, this is Iram. I'll see you guys real soon.